we're putting back into our schools, that taxes can go up even more than the impact of the project. And I'd like you to speak a little bit about Proposition 2.5, why that can happen under state law, basically. So if you could talk a little bit about that. And then if maybe Mr. Delaney could talk a little bit about the motion that we're going to hear about town meeting, the amounts and how that's going to work. And the 2/3 vote is for town meeting.
That's correct.
Only the ballot
Right.
is a simple majority.
That is correct.
So if you could talk about those two things, I think that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. I'll try to give an overview of Proposition 2.5. First thing, this school project and the override for it is a debt exclusion override. So it is the amount of money that we raise is for one purpose, the building of the school project, and that money can only be spent for that. And the debt service for that, as it's currently planned, is over a 25-year period. And when the debt is paid off, that money is the money that's coming on your tax bill, which is above what we call the levy limit, goes away. So that's the first piece of it. It's for one purpose, and when it's paid for, if the tax rate was $10 and the school was an additional $1, when the 25-year period is over and the debt is paid off, the tax bill is again $10. Obviously, I'm just trying to make an example of what happens with the override dollars. Now, Proposition 2.5, when it was passed many years ago, took what communities were spending and set basically a levy limit. And a levy limit is the total amount of taxes a community can raise. And under 2.5, that levy limit can be raised by 2.5% maximum, plus new growth. New growth would be new homes in town, new businesses, those kinds of things, additions to a home. The assessors count that as new growth. So if, and the question has been basically, if new schools lead to higher home assessments or the economy raises the value of our homes, will in fact we be paying more taxes? And the answer to that is absolutely not. And the example, a simple example would be if your appraised value of your home doubled, your tax rate would, the tax rate would cut in half. And the amount of dollars that you paid would be identically the same. That's for, you know, a 1 year period. You know, plus 2.5, you know, as you go out. But increased valuation doesn't mean that you're going to pay more taxes. Now, I don't know how to provide maybe a better example of that, but I think that
It's a good description.
that sort of answers the question. Anything else on that?
Mrs. Bailey, do you think that answered it adequately?
Yes, I think you answered it well.
Regarding Mrs. Bailey's second question in terms of what the motion will be at town meeting, it's a bit wordy, but it's actually on the MSBA website. They dictate the language that needs to be included in the motion. The motion will include the total dollar amount of the project. It'll indicate the maximum percentage reimbursement, and it also concludes with this line, that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the project funding agreement. So, I think that succinctly puts it. There'll be a lot more words in the motion that will be read at town meeting, but once again, just to summarize, total amount of the project, maximum grant from the MSBA leads us to what the ultimate cost of this town will be, which will be maximum amount $60 million.
And that last line says that's the maximum amount the town can borrow?
It doesn't say, no, the motion is not that specific. what it says is that the amount, the borrowing authorized will be reduced by the total amount of the grant from the MSBA. That's what it says, yep. Any questions concerning that?
Perhaps we should mention also, because I think this has been a point of confusion to some people, is that the percentage that MSBA is giving to the town is 51.4%, 51.9% of the cost of the approved portion or the qualified portion of the project. So there are some items in the $107,800,000 project that don't qualify for MSBA reimbursement. And as a result, there's a range, depending on how much is spent in the area of contingencies, somewhere between $47 and $49 million would be the amount of the state grant, and the balance would be paid by the citizens of the town.
MSBA, they categorize items as eligible cost for reimbursement and non-eligible cost for reimbursement. So,
What were some of the non-eligible, Sean, just to articulate?
the septic system, the superintendent's administrative staff space, there'll be it's not a field house. There'll be a small team room with some bathrooms down in the field area. That's non-eligible.
Demolition?
That's eligible, except for...
Some of the demolition will not be eligible.
Moving classroom, I think.
The big items are the septic, superintendent administrative space, and the small athletic room with some bathrooms down near the athletic facilities.
We were talking about $9 million swing here of ineligible.
Correct. The other, what happens also is that MSBA, they determine a maximum square footage of eligible cost, so, which is lower than what's on the market. So once you exceed that, for instance, their square footage allotment may be $250 a square foot, where the actual cost may be $300 a square foot. So that differential is not part of the eligible cost too.
Any other questions? Yes, sir? Could you come to the...
John Lava, 17 Mead Road. I guess my biggest concern is if this doesn't pass, I don't know if we talked enough about the cost of the repairs to the existing schools. You know, what that cost would be. I understand there'll be no coverage by the state, is that correct?
That's,
Go ahead, Sean.
that's correct. There'll be no, well, can't say that it'll be zero reimbursement on anything, but essentially what we're talking about is $50 million in repairs in total between those two buildings up there.
Now,
And the $50 million cost, we estimate it would be over a 10-year period. And it's $50 million because once you start doing any sort of work on either one of those buildings, it triggers and it will remove grandfather. We have grandfather rights in those buildings right now. So for instance, if we,
ADA compliance, yeah.
what the state looks at is, what is the assessed value today? And my understanding is the assessed value, at least at a high school, is very low. Once you put in work in either one of those buildings that exceeds 30%, then ADA compliance comes in. I don't believe either building has fire sprinklers. We're required to put fire sprinklers in both buildings. We know, although both buildings have been well cared for, they're aged. There's asbestos probably in both, if not just one of those buildings. Once you start getting into the ceilings of those buildings, then you have to do asbestos abatement. So that $50 million cost is another cost number that's been fully vetted by the architect and the OPM in terms of what the actual cost will be in those particular buildings.
Well, in my experience, and I've worked in the construction field for over 20-something years, and it is in large projects in Cambridge where my union is based, and also my wife is a facilities director, and we both discussed that aspect, and that 50 million that you're talking about, I can guarantee you is under what it's gonna actually cost. Because like you talked about, once you start opening certain things up, okay, then you start, you know, you open yourself up to code violations and whatever, and you have to fix the problems, especially on HVAC. You know, you're talking about the sprinkler systems, and so, you know, through my experience, anytime we've done large rehab projects, it's always been more than what, you know, the cost has been. Now, my concern is if this doesn't go through, the things that we're gonna lose is the state money, okay? The fact is, you know, you know, from what I'm reading is, you know, we're lacking, you know, accreditation could become a problem for the school. So in essence, you know, this stuff is gonna have to be done, either way to maintain accreditation. And like anything, you know, right now interest rates are good, you know, so it would only make sense, you know, to go ahead with this, because if this doesn't go through, what's gonna happen is we're gonna be paying higher interest rates, the cost of products are gonna go up, and the cost of labor is gonna go up. So like I said, that $50 million, without even getting into the aspect of not knowing what you're getting into, on top of all those three other things, is like I said, that $50 million is way below what the actual cost is gonna be. And the fact is, a brand new state-of-the-art high school. I mean, I came to North Reading, my wife and I chose this town because of the school system for our kids and the good reputation. You know, we came from the Winchester school systems, and you know, we were, you know, extremely pleased to see our daughter in the curriculum that they had in the preschool program was much more geared to learning than just fun and games like Winchester. And the one thing that, you know, a lot of, you know, a new high school would also, I don't think anyone has touched on this, is the, you know, community spirit that, you know, a new school and the community pride that it would bring to the town. You know, that's something that I don't think has been talked about enough, you know. People are talking about taxes and whatever, but that's a sense of pride. And I know, you know, for myself, you know, my wife and I were discussing, you know, sending our son to something like St. John's Prep. We lose a lot of good students, and, you know, to the fact that I've been in that high school. To me, I went to Malden Catholic. To me, that high school is, you know, woefully inadequate, you know, and if we want to, you know, do for our children, which, you know, in return will, you know, do for us as we get older. You know, we want to, I think, you know, we should set forth the best that we can for our kids, you know, and, you know, from what I understand from other parents, the middle school is even in worse shape than the high school. So, and I guess I'm up here just speaking for, you know, my view in the construction field, and, you know, speaking on behalf of the children. And, you know, I just hope people do the right thing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Jane Swart, 138 Chestnut Street. I just want to clarify one thing. If this project does not pass, and we have to spend the $50 million for the, you know, upgrades, is it true that we will still not gain any space? We'll still have modulars, we still will not have any more science labs, you know, we won't gain anything in educational quality. Is that true?
Educationally, we'll gain 0.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Charlene Rinaldi, 7 Bishops Way.